into this story coming out of Canada, Justin Trudeau is not having a good week, and I think you will understand why. It appears that for whatever reason, he is being accused of applauding and honoring a Nazi veteran. Now, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. We saw this happen also with Jon Stewart, but Jon Stewart is not a prime minister. He's not a politician, no political leader. Justin Trudeau is. We're going to get into this clip that everybody is yelling at Justin Trudeau about, and then I'm going to show you a couple of examples that proved what I've been saying long ago, that they knew about Nazification in Ukraine. That includes Justin Trudeau as well. But let's get into this clip first, because Justin, this did not go good for you.
Another story from Canada itself. Now, Canada is under fire for applauding a Nazi in Parliament during Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit. And Canadian Jewish organizations and social media critics are slamming the Canadian Parliament for giving a man who fought for the Nazis a standing ovation. The leader of opposition in Canada, Pierre, called it an appalling error in judgment on the part of Justin Trudeau, whose person.
Was it an error? Let's go back and look at the picture. Look, I don't think this was an error. There's Zelensky right next to Justin Trudeau. There they are standing up and applauding, right? How many times is this going to happen, folks? How many times is it going to happen where they're like, whoops, we didn't realize that this person was an actual Nazi?
On the part of Justin Trudeau, whose personal protocol office is responsible for arranging and vetting all guests and programming for state visits of this kind.
That part right there. Who is responsible for vetting the guest?
Pierre called it an appalling error in judgment on the part of Justin Trudeau, whose personal protocol office is responsible for arranging and vetting all guests and programming for state visits of this kind.
So Justin Trudeau's office is responsible for vetting all guests. And when you vet someone, obviously you look at their background, you look at their history. So do you mean to tell me they just didn't vet this one? Or did they vet him and they chose to ignore it?
Pierre has also called for Trudeau to personally apologize, saying that he must avoid passing the blame to others as he always does. In fact, the Speaker of Canada's House of Commons apologized on Sunday for recognizing a man who fought for a Nazi military unit during World War II. And we have CNN News 18's Abhishek Jha to tell us more about this whole controversy. Abhishek, over to you.
Of course, this is a real concern that the Canadian society and the political system will not accept, felicitating and honoring a person who has been involved in Nazi atrocities. And this is what has happened. And Justin Trudeau government, the Prime Minister himself had met that person. We saw cheering and applauding for that person, that soldier of Nazi unit on the House of Commons, and people didn't know much about him, his background then, because it is believed that the protocol division of Prime Minister Trudeau is responsible for any guest or any member who is felicitated on the floor of the House of Commons, and for that people didn't know much about it. And probably that was one of the reasons why he just passed on as a normal veteran. But as the information trickled in that he had been involved in Nazi atrocities units and he worked for them, there has been wide uproar across Canada, so much so that the Speaker of the Canadian Parliament has also apologized. Now the opposition is demanding that the Trudeau government should take the blame of it, and he should also apologize for him being felicitated and honored at the floor of the House.
Talk about an embarrassing endeavor. Now, Justin Trudeau did attempt, and I say attempt lightly, to apologize. But he also talked about how embarrassing it was. Let's get into this clip from one.
Is Canada a nest for Nazis? Why is Canada rolling out a red carpet for a man who fought for them? These are questions I want to ask tonight. Let me start by saying Canadian politicians need a crash course in international diplomacy or perhaps a masterclass in the art of global perception. Because if they continue on their current trajectory, Canada runs a risk of alienating even more allies in the days to come.
Yep.
Just last week, Canada found itself playing host to an extraordinary guest of honor, a Ukrainian war hero no less. The 98-year-old Yaroslav Hunka received a standing ovation in Canada's House of Commons. However, Sunday brought an unexpected twist. The Speaker of the House issued a public apology. But do you know why? Because of the man for whom Canada decided to roll out the red carpet. You see, this war veteran once fought for the Nazis during World War II. And now Canada stands red-faced in the spotlight again. The controversy first erupted last week over a photo from Canada's House of Commons.
And Zelensky right next to him. You see this? So again, it's also Zelensky who also is applauding. You mean to tell me no one knew who this guy was? No one? What have we been telling you about the Nazification in Ukraine?
It showed a smiling Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, standing alongside Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau while applauding a person outside the frame.
Ukrainian-Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98.
Now, if he had that information, the information he just gave you, if he had that information, you know he fought in the war. You mean to tell me you don't have the information about which side he fought on? Who he fought for? What a mess.
You heard the applause. This enthusiastic cheer came right after Zelensky's address to the House. Canadian lawmakers burst into applause after Speaker Anthony Rota drew attention to this war veteran. He was introduced as a Ukrainian war hero, a veteran who had once fought with the 1st Ukrainian Division during World War II.
Again, this is someone who was a Ukrainian soldier. World War II. So they had all of that information. They had information that he fought in World War II, but they didn't have information that he was a Nazi. Come on, guys. Wikipedia probably could have told them that.
Before making Canada his home. But here is where the plot thickens. The 1st Ukrainian Division is more infamously known as the 1st Galician Division or the 14th Waffen Grenadier Division of the SS, a unit formed by Nazi Germany during the latter half of World War II. Comprising primarily Ukrainian collaborators from the western part of the country, this notorious division was embroiled in a brutal anti-partisan warfare. Its members stand accused of committing horrendous atrocities against Polish, Jewish, and Russian civilians.
And this is what they stood up and applauded this guy.
Dear Canada, when extending an invitation to someone within the sanctified walls of your parliament and showering them with honors and praise, before making big statements in your parliament, is it too much to ask for a thorough background check? Isn't it the responsibility of the Prime Minister's office to arrange and vet all guests and programming for state visits of this nature? Following a barrage of backlash, especially from the Jewish community, the Speaker of the House has issued a public apology. Anthony Rota assumed full responsibility for his actions. According to the Associated Press, the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Studies also issued a condemning statement, and rightfully so. They said that the Ukrainian 1st Division was responsible for the mass murder of innocent civilians with a level of brutality and malice that is unimaginable. They demanded an apology, stating, and I quote, "An apology is owed to every Holocaust survivor and veteran of the Second World War who fought with the Nazis, and an explanation must be provided as to how this individual entered the hallowed halls of the Canadian Parliament and received recognition from the Speaker of the House and a standing ovation.
I mean, which side did they assume he was fighting on? Like there was two sides, right? So why would they assume? Like this is common sense if you think about it.
Then came a direct attack on Prime Minister Trudeau. Canada's leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre, launched a blistering attack alleging that Trudeau had personally met with and honored the Nazi war veteran. He criticized Trudeau's appalling error in judgment. He called on the Canadian Prime Minister to take full responsibility, warning him against shifting blame onto others, a tactic that Poilievre accused Trudeau of frequently using in the past as well.
Called out by your own administration. Called the fuck out. He had already met with this guy.
Even Russia expressed its anger. Moscow's ambassador to Ottawa announced that Russia would demand an explanation from Canada and said that it will send diplomatic notes to Canadian Foreign Ministry and the Prime Minister's office. The Russian envoy didn't mince words, describing the Liberal Trudeau cabinet as an epitome of neoliberal fascism. So what was Trudeau's response after being captured on film beaming while a Nazi war veteran was being honored right before his eyes? Trudeau's office deemed the decision the right thing to do, stressing that no advance notice was provided to the Prime Minister's office nor the Ukrainian delegation about this invitation.
He doubled down. This is a horrible look. Horrible. What do you mean it's the right thing to do? How do people in Canada feel about this? Any Canadians in the chat? How do you feel about this? Where's everybody else on this issue, by the way? Has Joe Biden, I haven't seen Joe Biden make any statement in reference to this. People are really quiet today. When I woke up this morning, I looked on Twitter. People are really quiet. Our politicians aren't saying a damn thing.
Now, this reaction from the Canadian Prime Minister's office raises many questions. What were Canada's intelligence agencies doing? How did they miss out on this man's history with the Nazis?
That's my point. I don't think they did. I don't think that there's no way. If you had all of that, how would you not have that information as well?
Remember, these very agencies which granted clearance to a Nazi war veteran are making so-called credible allegations against India. Why do these agencies appear to shield such forces within Canada's borders? Where does the responsibility ultimately lie? The fact that an apology has been issued implies an acknowledgement of a lack of due diligence. Because frankly, the truth is, for all its liberal policies, the Canadian government has conveniently turned a blind eye to the extremism that is spreading like a sickness under its watch. A 2022 report written by a minister's advisory panel, which was ironically enough released by Defence Minister Anita Anand, noted how the Canadian military was riddled with white supremacists and neo-Nazis.
And we'll get into more about that. Because again, some of us have been complaining about the Nazification in Ukraine, and we were told that we were Putin puppets. A number of us. Now, Nico actually had a short video about this as well. He said Trudeau and Canadian politicians forced to apologize after giving standing ovation to a literal Nazi during Zelensky's visit. So are Zelensky psychopaths finally ready to admit that Ukraine has had and still has a massive Nazi problem? Thank you so much for saying this, Nico. And then I have something else I want to show you guys, to show you that our politicians have known about this for quite some time.
Canadian politicians were forced to apologize after they accidentally gave a standing ovation for a literal Nazi. That's right. During Zelensky's visit to Canada, the legislature there gave Yaroslav Hunka, 98-year-old World War II veteran, a standing ovation for being a hero of the Ukrainian independence movement at the time. And what's crazy is the fact that they were singing his praises for fighting against Russia in World War II. I mean, I'm just saying that probably should have been the clue, because it's pretty well established history that Russians fought against Nazis.
Exactly. That part there, very, very telling. Very, very telling.
But even still, if Canadians had did a little bit of research before celebrating a literal Nazi, they would have known that Honka volunteered for the Waffen Grenadier Division, which is a Nazi unit commanded by a Nazi. Pause. Let's take a second to look at this tweet from Politico. Nazi-linked veteran receives standing ovation. The man literally volunteered to be part of a Nazi unit. Referring to him as Nazi-linked is like Wesley Snipes referring to himself on the census as black adjacent. But the real question is, are y'all finally ready to admit that there is a Nazi problem in Ukraine, like we have been telling y'all since the beginning of the war? Because these are the type of guys that all your tax money is going to.
Most of you guys watching, you've known about this for quite some time. I did just receive an update from Eric. Eric, if you want to go ahead and put that link up, and then I'll go to the other ones as well. Somehow that's on here twice. I don't know. I'll go to the other ones as well after that. Yeah, breaking news. Eric actually just found this. Thank you so much. Apparently this just happened. Canadian House Speaker Anthony Rota resigns post after he honored Nazi. So that just came through. That's right. So there's that. Anthony Rota, the Speaker of Canada's House of Commons, has resigned his post after he faced criticism for honoring a man who served in a unit of Schutzstaffel, the Nazis' paramilitary organization in World War II. It is with a heavy heart that I rise in the House today to inform members of my resignation as Speaker of the House of Commons, Rota said in a statement published by the lower house of Canada's Parliament. It has been my greatest honor as a parliamentarian to have been elected by you, my peers, to serve as the Speaker of the House of Commons in the 43rd and 44th Parliaments. Well, well, well. Should Justin Trudeau resign? If you think that Justin Trudeau should resign, say yes in the chat. If not, say no. Now, what's interesting, though, is even after all of this, Justin Trudeau tried to talk about Russian propaganda, right? Because he got to kick this back to Russia instead of focusing on what just happened. I think it's going to be really important that all of us push back against Russian propaganda and disinformation. This is what he's talking about right now, guys. See you see this playbook? The heat's on me. Let me talk about Russia. That'll get people off my ass.
Obviously, it's extremely upsetting that this happened. The speaker has acknowledged his mistake and has apologized. But this is something that is deeply embarrassing to the Parliament of Canada and, by extension, to all Canadians. I think particularly of Jewish MPs and all members of the Jewish community across the country who are commemorating Yom Kippur today. I think it's going to be really important that all of us push back against Russian propaganda, Russian disinformation, and continue our steadfast and unequivocal support for Ukraine as we did last week with announcing further measures to stand with Ukraine in Russia's illegal war against it.
What does Russia have to do with what happened in the parliament yesterday? Absolutely nothing. Let me take the heat off of me and let me put the blame on other people. Let's get people to focus on Russia so they don't focus on what the hell just happened in the parliament the other day. Russia had nothing to do with this. Nothing. That was all you, Justin. Your office is supposed to vet these guests, but there's more because this is not the first time, bruh. This ain't the first time. Let's go back to 2017. Now, this is from Rupa. Rupa said in 2017, the Russian embassy in Canada pointed to the presence of a monument in Oakville, Ontario, honoring Ukrainian soldiers who fought in a Nazi Waffen SS unit. The Russian tweet was correct. But incredibly, Justin Trudeau's government went into high gear to smear the correct Russian claim and anyone who repeated it as disinformation, just like you see he's doing right now. It gets worse. Dave Puglisi wrote about this incident in 2018 in the Ottawa Citizen and makes the observation. But in Canada, the federal government is more than happy to play along with defending Himmler's SS divisions and Nazi collaborators. And then they showed some of the symbols there. She goes on to say the Russian tweet sent bureaucrats at Global Affairs Canada into overdrive as they tried to defend the SS unit and Ukrainian Nazi collaborators. The bureaucrats came up with a strategy. They would label the tweet as disinformation. Sound familiar, guys? And they came up with a plan to spread the word to the news media as part of their efforts to defend Ukraine's Nazi collaborators. This was 2017. This ain't the first time for Canada. She goes on to say, graffiti on monument commemorating Nazi SS division being investigated as a hate crime by police. Halton police. This incident occurred to a monument and the graffiti appeared to target an identifiable group. And this is the monument here. Graffiti on monument commemorating Nazi SS division being investigated as a hate crime by the police. That's Ottawa. She goes on to say, coverage has largely focused on the possibility of a journalist committing an act of vandalism. That there is a monument to a Nazi collaborator and a war criminal responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands was not the primary focus of much of the coverage. And then she linked Jacobin. So there was a Jacobin article said Canada has a Nazi monument problem. This was shared November 7 of 2022. This is why I tell you guys, this ain't the first time. This has happened before. So Trudeau can kick rocks, bruh. And for the many times that we've tried to tell people about the Nazification in Ukraine, I can always go back to this letter for our own U.S. House of Representatives in 2018. I've shown this on the show before, but everyone may not have seen this. Now, this came from Rokana's office. This letter was written April 23rd, 2018. Listen to this. Dear Deputy Secretary Sullivan, we write to express our dismay about recent reports of state-sponsored Holocaust distortion and denial taking place in Europe, particularly in Poland and Ukraine. Well. Let's go on. These developments are unacceptable, especially given today's global surge of anti-Semitism. Remember, this letter was written April 23rd, 2018. Now let's talk about something for a second. And I'm going to show you who signed this letter too. Why is it that these politicians, they're mainly Democrats, why is it they were willing to admit about the Nazification problem in Ukraine in 2018? But when pressed about it today, they say there is no Nazi problem in Ukraine. Look at the date, April 23rd, 2018. Who was president at that time? Donald Trump was president at that time. And one of the criticisms of Trump's presidency is that his rhetoric was starting to spread globally. It actually benefited these politicians to speak out against the Nazification in 2018 because Trump was the president. Remember, these are Democrats who signed this. Trump was the president. It doesn't benefit them to acknowledge it today because Biden is president and he's a Democrat. This is why partisan politics is a fucking problem. AOC said there were no Nazis in Ukraine. All of them have said this. But they signed this letter, 2018. Let's go on. We urge you to join us in human rights organizations in standing against anti-Semitism, xenophobia, and all forms of intolerance by calling for the Polish and Ukrainian governments to unequivocally reject Holocaust distortion and the honoring of Nazi collaborators and fully prosecute anti-Semitic crimes. Nazi collaborators. All these people need to step down. All these motherfuckers. Look at this. We also ask that you detail what steps are being taken by the U.S. government to monitor instances of Holocaust distortion and ensure that the U.S. is not supporting or funding groups and individuals that promote or justify anti-Semitism. What is the U.S. doing right now, guys? U.S. is not supporting, funding groups and individuals. They want to ensure that that wouldn't happen. Groups that promote and justify anti-Semitism. But the U.S. is funding groups doing that right now. We believe these steps must include a firm request that these offensive laws be repealed. While the legal questions and historical context of Ukraine and Poland differ, developments in both countries are a cause for concern. Oh, honey, spread this to your friends. Earlier this year, Warsaw passed a law making it a criminal offense to state that Poland participated in the Holocaust. The law, which was rightfully criticized by the U.S. Department, the Israeli government, and others, was occupied by a surge of anti-Semitic remarks. The Israeli embassy in Warsaw reported being flooded by anti-Semitic vitriol, while members of the Polish Jewish community expressed concern at rising tensions in the wake of the law. Let's go down to, there's more there. Let's go down to this part. Let's go down to Ukraine. Wait for it, folks. Ukraine's 2015 memory laws went even further by glorifying Nazi collaborators and making it a criminal offense to deny their heroism. What just happened in Canada? They stood up and applauded this war hero. 2015, it tells you they made a law. They made it a law that it was a criminal offense to deny their heroism. Whew. However, unlike the Polish law, this move by the government in Kyiv has received little to no public response from the United States. Say what? Little to no response. The groups and individuals extolled by Ukraine include, listen to this, Nazi collaborators, Stefan Bandera, Roman Shivolek, and the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists, as well as the Ukrainian Insurgent Army. The Ukrainian Insurgent Army, guys. These paramilitaries and individuals in some cases collaborated with the Nazis and bear responsibility for the murder of thousands of Jews, 70,000 to 100,000 Poles, and other ethnic minorities between 1941 and 1945. This piece right here. Oh, I can highlight on here? Will it let me do that? Oh, no, I didn't want to do that. Take me back, Eric. Take me back. I didn't mean to press that. That was bad. Oh, I don't know how to make it bigger now. Maybe I should not highlight. Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Sorry, guys. I was going to try to highlight this because this piece is very important. Where am I? Oh, here we go. It is particularly troubling that much of the Nazi glorification in Ukraine is government supported. Say what? Government supported, boo. Examples include the 2017 pro-UPA campaign conducted by the Ukrainian Institute of National Memory, the naming of streets after Bandera and Shukovich, by the Kyiv City Council and Lviv's 2017 Shukvik Fest, which took place on the anniversary of the 1941 Lviv pogroms in which 4,000 Jews were killed. State-sponsored Holocaust revisionism in Ukraine is accompanied by other forms of anti-Semitism. As Israel's Department of Diaspora Affairs pointed out in its annual report on anti-Semitism, the whitewashing of these Ukrainian heroes has coincided with the increasing incidence of anti-Semitism across Ukraine. Oh, but no, there's no Nazi. This doesn't exist. This includes desecration of Holocaust memorials in Jewish places of worship, such as the desecration of the Holy Tomb in Uman with the swastika carved pig's head, a January 2017 march in honor of Bandera, during which participants chanted Jews out, as well as last summer's firebombing of Lviv synagogue during Shivik Fest. Last November, Radio Free Europe reported on the presence of torches and Nazi salutes at a 20,000 person march in honor of the 75th anniversary of UPA. These torchlight marches are closely linked to organizations such as the neo-Nazi Azov Battalion. Oh no, you don't say so. But AOC said there's no such thing. They said there is no Nazi presence in Ukraine. Isn't that what they all say? When you ask them and you push back, why are we funding Nazis in Ukraine? There is no Nazis in Ukraine. That is a myth. That's Russian propaganda. Bro, they pointed it out in this letter in 2018. Azov Battalion. And they even referred to it as Neo-Nazi Azov Battalion. And this is who the U.S. government is funding. Everybody need to have this letter in your back pocket. Eric, we can share the link. Will you give them the link to the Dropbox when we're done so everybody has this on demand anytime they need to pull it out and debate with somebody? An armed group that was prohibited from receiving U.S. weapons and training by the recently signed Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2018. See how things changed? They prohibited giving them weapons because of their Nazification. They said, no, we are not going to give that group weapons. And what are they doing right now? Rather than disband Azov, the government incorporated it into the Ukrainian National Guard, overseen by the Ministry of the Interior. The group is widely known to be closely connected to Interior Minister Arsen Avakov. We're not going to read the whole thing. I'm put the link in the chat so you guys have this letter in your back pocket. But I want to show you who signed it. If you see your representative on here, say I see them in the chat. Rokana, David Cicilline, Gerald Nadler, Adam Smith, Raul Grijalva, Mark Pocan, Zoe Lofgren, Lee Zeldin, Jamie Raskin, Pramila Jayapal, Eleanor Holmes Norton, Gwen Moore, Brenda L. Lawrence, Matt Cartwright, James P. McGovern, John A. Yarmouth, Juan Vargas, Steve Cohen, Frank Pallone Jr., Donald M. Payne Jr., Kathleen Rice, Jose Serrano, Ted Lieu. I knew his lame ass would be there. Luis Gutierrez. Let's go on. There's more. Donald S. Byer, Jackie Rosen, Nydia? Yes, Nydia Velasquez, Yvette Clark, Bobby Rush, Sean Patrick Maloney, Keith Ellison, Sheila Jackson Lee, Danny Davis, Carolyn Maloney, Alan Lowenthal, Rick Larson, Jared Polis, Tulsi Gabbard. They all knew. Debbie Weiserman Schultz, Nanette Barragan, Ann Custer, Carol Shea Porter, Hakeem Jeffries, Robert A. Brady, Eddie Bernice Johnson, Grace Ming, David E. Price, Henry C. Hank Johnson, Matt Gates, Barbara Lee, Adriano Espilot. Adriano Espilot. That name sound familiar? That's the same one that hosted that fair with AOC, that military recruitment fair. Betty McCollum. All these people are sold out. Peter Welch, Debbie Dingle, Vicente, is it Vincent or just Vicente? Vicente Gonzalez, Dwight Evans, Marsha Fudge. This letter again, 2018. April 23rd, 2018. Eric, can you put the link to the Dropbox in the chat? It's an open Dropbox, so anybody that has the link can access the letter. If you saw your representative here, ask them why they lying. Why they lying today? And look, if it is what it is, say it is what it is, okay? If you signed on this letter and you saw that there was a problem with Nazification in Ukraine back in 2018, don't tell your constituents today that there's no fucking Nazi problem. Don't tell them that. Keep it fucking real and say, yes, it is a problem. But we signed on and agreed to this because we want to stop Vladimir Putin. Keep that shit 100. You don't lie to these people. All your signatures on the damn letter. And Matt Gates, if I was Matt Gates, I'd call all the mofos out. Call them out. That's what this is about, ladies and gentlemen. They knew. The Democrats don't want to say anything right now because a Democrat is president. Vice versa. If the Republican was president right now, Republicans wouldn't want to say anything. This is why partisan politics is so problematic. There is a Nazification problem in Ukraine, and your representatives acknowledged it in 2018. They're lying to you today. They're lying to you, and to be honest, I think Justin Trudeau's ass is lying too. Call him out. Now, how you going to get up here? All those people, roll call to all, especially the Democrats, all of you that claim to care so much about civil rights and we need the black vote. How you going to stand up here and talk about civil rights and say that you care about racial issues? How the hell are you going to say that shit? And you wrote that letter in 2018 and you're funding Nazis now. So miss me with all of it. All of it. And they should be, especially the black ones, Sheila Jackson Lee. Any people of color that signed on to that letter, you all should be ashamed of yourselves. All of you. Because you all voted for it. You're voting for the weapons to go over there to the same battalion that you identified in 2018 as a neo-Nazi group. I'm really angry. I'll be more angry, even more angry at the black people who signed it because you fucking know better. And you go back to your community and you sit up there and you tell the people in your community, I'm fighting for us every day. You ain't fighting for shit. These people ain't fighting for us. They fighting for their own bank account and their own seat. They're all crooks. They're all corrupt. So remember that when it comes time to vote for them again. Remember this. Who keeps putting these people in office? No way these people can tell me they believe the shit that they're saying. No way. Thank you, Matt. Zelensky is going country to country, gathering billions of dollars for Nazis. What is going on with this world? My grandfather fought in World War II. This is sick. JB says, I guess Trudeau did not see that coming. Old man Barker, I'm in Canada. What's up, old man? Elias, this is the same guy who was caught in blackface. That's right. Trudeau was. Gorgon says, Sabby, they knew he was a Nazi. The deputy prime minister, Chrystia Freeland, standing behind Trudeau, is the granddaughter of a Ukrainian Nazi. She waves their red and black flag. Y'all see this shit? That's what I'm telling you. These people gonna mess around. We're going on dangerous territory here. Thank you, Gab the chef. I'm an immigrant Canadian from Eastern EU. I knew immediately when heard the speaker's intro. Based grade 8 history. For some time now, after 25 years, we are actually thinking of leaving Canada, and we are not alone. Thank you, DC. One Nazi flag at a workers' rights protest condemns the whole movement. One Nazi war criminal praised by an entire national parliament. No one cares. Thank you, Freddie. This Nazi was celebrated on purpose, not on accident, but the real purpose behind it is not yet clear. Sabby Sabs, great show. Thank you. Thank you for the super sticker, Sherry. Thank you for this one as well, Gab the chef. The Canadian deputy PM is of Ukrainian descent, and some suggesting with links to Nazis in Ukraine. Yo, this shit is wild, man. This is wild. Thank you, Matt. Sabby, great coverage and investigation into this issue. Thank you, NK. Sabs always doing the damn thing. Thank you, Will. You rule, Sabs. Thank you. Thank you, Skip. Poland is looking to extradite the Nazi junta. Pasta and Kurt on JDS covered article by Forward that said the 14th Division burned 500 to 1,000 Poles alive in 1953. Shh. Thank you, Freddie. Why is everyone hating Antonio Banderas lately? Didn't you like Desperado? LOL. Oh, we got to add the jokes in there, Freddie. Freddie the fish. Thank you, Skip D. Junta going from applause at CAD Parliament to Polish prison real quick. The boldness of showing your Nazi self in public like that. Thank you, Top JJ. You don't have health care, but Azov and right sector do.